when we finished the consumer theory, the next part in microeconomics is producer theory. Because when we are talking about microeconomics, in microeconomics, we have two important agents, which is firm and consumer. Just firm and consumer. So in the microeconomics concept, consumers are trying to maximize their utilities or the level of happiness and satisfaction. But the firm, which is another part of like the market in microeconomics, try to maximize their profit. Maximize utility and maximize their profit. Somehow we can say profit is itself a kind of utility, because the firm, why want to maximize their profit? In order to increase their level of satisfaction from their operation, to get the highest what they want from the market, to get the highest what they want from their supply to the market. So when it comes to producer theory, we have to think about like some basic foundation. First of all, as we consider the consumer theory and the consumer theory part, which is they were trying to maximize their utility, now we are going to the production side, in some way to the supply side of the market. Because basically what we are like thinking about or focusing about is the market. But when we are thinking about market, in the market, there is supply and there is demand. When we are talking about the demand side, we are talking about the consumer choice or the consumer preferences or the consumer demand function. But when we are talking about the supply side, we are talking about the producer or the firm, which they are supplying their product in the market. So for now, we have done with this side, which is with the demand side, which is the consumer theory part. From now on, we are working on the supply side, which is the production side of the market. When we are talking about the production side of the market, so when it comes to like supply, most of the time supply doesn't mean only productions. Because sometimes we supply our endowment to the market. Like when it comes to exchange economy, that we later on we will move to that, there is no production. There's only exchange. We bring our endowment, whatever we have, we bring to the market and we do the supply and demand. But here, specifically, we are talking about the production side of the market, which we produce and bring to the market. So when it comes to the production side of the market, our agent, economic agent, is the firm. But when we're talking about the consumer choice, our individual agent were the consumer. And the firm, what they are going to do, they are going to do the production activity. They are combining input to get some output and to bring that output to the market in order to maximize their profit. So the firm produces output by using input, both measured in terms of a flow amount per unit time. If you remember, one of the questions that we have specifically in profit maximization, for example, when we bring y, which is x1 to the power of alpha, x to the power of 1 minus alpha, which is like a typical Cobb-Douglas production function. For example, if the x is your labor, L to the power of alpha, k to the power of 1 minus alpha, as you see, here we have output. Here we have input labor, which is our worker. We have another input, which is capital. So as you see, they have different measurement unit. For example, worker can be measured by the number of people, and capital is the number of like your machine. But in order to get rid of that kind of different measurement unit, we are measuring this one in terms of per unit time. Like labor per unit of time, capital per unit of time. When we are thinking about per unit of time, it means we are going to like a kind of unify the unit of measurement. So another things, when it comes to output and input, both of them are commodities. For example, this input can be labor. This input can be capital. This input can be some intermediate good. Some intermediate good that can be used further for more production. And also when it comes to output, output can be like something final good. And also at the same time, output can be some intermediate good. That you need for the further production. For example, suppose here your input is milk. Milk is your input. And by using the production process, you change this milk to cheese. You make from milk cheese. And this cheese, although for one company, can be their output. Because like this is a cheese making company. Where they just change milk to cheese. But for another company, which is a bakery, for a bakery, this cheese, which is a final output for the company who are making milk to cheese, it can be used as an intermediate good or an input for the bakery. So it means one things or one good at the same times can be input for one company and can be output for another company. It depends on what, in which purpose, or what purpose you're using those input and output. So the next thing, when you are combining output, when you are combining input to get some output out of combination of input, so we have something which is called output, YJO, which is the quantity of commodity J produced by the firm as output. So the J stands for our output name. For in this case, for example, is cheese. And this O stands for output. What does it mean? It means the cheese is a functioning as an output here. That means we combined some other input to produce cheese as an output. And also, for producing this cheese, which is again J, we need some input. Again, quantity of commodity J used as input. For example, in this term, which is this J, is input. For example, in this case, this J is your milk. This J is a milk. And it can be used as an input. As an input. Or if we consider in other terms for a bakery, which is producing cake, for a bakery, although this cheese is output for like a dairy company, which is producing milk, cheese, butter, yogurt, is an output, but for this like bakery company, this cheese, which is functioning as a J for this company as an output, this can be function as an input for another company. So the other thing is, when we are combining input to produce some output, as we have already talked that they are measuring as a per time unit or in terms of time. So if the yj as an output is greater than the yj as an input, then when we are like subtracting this one, we can bring something like zj, which is the zj is the results of this production process. If in this equation, if our yj of o is greater than yj of I, then when we subtract these two from each other, as a result, we have net output. That means the output that we get from the combination of input is greater than that one. We have net output. But in another way, if y of jo is less than y of ji, we have net input. We have net input. So let me say in another way. For example, when we have yj as an output, which is what you are getting from some production, and let me write in a different way. If your y is output, and you use some x as an input, if y minus x is greater than 0, it means you have some positive things to bring to the market and to sell. Then it's called net output. For example, suppose that when y is minus x is greater than 0, we use a notation, for example, y star, which y star is a positive. So then it's a net output. It's a net output. If in another way, if y minus x is less than 0, it means it has a negative sign. We can use a notation of minus x star, which in this time is net input. It means the input that we bring is more than the output that we produce to the market or give to the market. So it depends on what you are going to do and how you're functioning in the market. So this is what we are talking about, the net input and net output. And we know more about later on. So when we are talking, another terms that we need to know in producer theory is the production plan. What is the production plan? Production plan is the vector of net output and or input of all available commodities. So it's a vector. This Z stands for like your production plan. So it doesn't mean we need to use the notation of Z. And instead of Z, we can use Y or some other notation. But we need to know that Z is a production plan. And this production plan consists all the input and output that we use in our production process. So those input we bring to the production process, and then we have some output to take it to the market to sell. So among here, Z1, Z2, up to ZL, each of them can show either net output or net input. Each of them can show either net output or net input. For example, so the first, some H number. Suppose that H is 5. From Z1, when H is 5, it means from Z1, Z2, Z3, Z4, and Z5. This element in this production plan is net input. Because in the first step, we bring some input to the company. When we bring input to the company and we didn't change this input to output, so it's obviously input is much larger than output. So the first step, when bring some input to the company, so then we have net input. Then after that, so because we have like L number of commodities, in this case, L number of input and output. So the total, when H is 5, which is net input, so then what will remain? L minus H, like L minus 5. L minus 5. Suppose if L is equal to 8, then this one, 8 minus 5, is equal to 3. That means we have 5 net inputs and also 3 net output. Net output, which is like, for example, start from Z5. Z5, Z6, Z6, Z7, Z8. This 3 Z6, Z7, and Z8. Because 5 of them were playing as a role of input. So they are net input, which is from Z1, Z2, Z3, Z4, Z5. As we have the total L as 8, so then we subtract 8 from 5, 3 will remain. So this 3 is net output. What does it mean? It means we are combining this 5 input, and by combining this 5 input, we have 3 output, which in this process, our output is greater than input. So we are going to take this one in the market. So each of Z may be different. For example, this one can be, if we think about like for a bakery company, this Z can be cake. This Z can be bread. What other thing we have in a bakery company? They produce cake, they produce bread, they produce like sandwich. So it can be sandwich. So here, our net input, each Z can be some input that we are using in our production process. This can be milk. This can be cheese. This can be flour that we are going to make cake and different things. So in terms of notation, mostly we use a negative sign when we have net input. A negative sign for the net input. A positive sign for the net output. Positive signs means that we have some positive things to bring to the market and sell them. Negative things means we have something, but we didn't have anything to bring to the market to sell. So that's why, as you see here, this Z up to this Z to H has negative sign. But here in this vector, we have Z1, Z2 up to ZL. So if we are like transforming, or if we are substituting, and instead of Z and ZH, so then the Z1, just move the negative sign here, will become minus X1, and this ZH will become minus XH. Because in the main vector, we don't have any minus sign for any of Z. So when it comes here, so have to we change this one. So instead of Z1, we can write down minus X1, and instead of ZH, we can write down minus XH. So then minus X1 up to minus XH, it means this part is net input. And from Y1 up to YL minus H, which is the last commodity that we have in our production, which is they have positive sign, they are net output. So it means we combine this input and we move to have some kind of output that we are bringing to the market to sell them.